CBC anchor Peter Mansbridge was covering the incredibly scary shooting at the Canadian Parliament yesterday live, and I want to show you a little clip here of his coverage so you can compare what the Canadian media does versus what the U.S. media does.
So a situation that is, as we say, tense and unclear, and it's on days like this, we keep reminding you of this, and it's important. It's on days like this where, the story takes a number of different pathways, a number of changes occur, and often rumors start in a situation like this. We're trying to keep them out of our coverage, but when they come sometimes from official sources, like members of Parliament, you tend to give them some credence, but you carefully weigh it with what we're also witnessing. It's clear the situation is not over. It is clear that police are in a tense standby situation and continue to be on the lookout. And until somebody blows the all clear on this, we will continue to stay on top of it and watch as the events unfold.
I'm embarrassed to be American. I am embarrassed to be American. The U.S. media is totally based on hysteria, fear-mongering, sensationalism, and ratings. See, old media is getting destroyed right now, so they're trying to find clever tricks, clever ways to force people to turn on CNN or to turn on the nightly news or any of the channels so that they'll watch. And one of the things that they discovered, one of the things they realized is that if you use the breaking news banner, people are more likely to watch for a little bit. And CNN is the worst at abusing the breaking news banner because it's a known fact in the business that CNN always gets more views whenever there's breaking news. Everybody goes to CNN when there's breaking news because they're viewed as more nonpartisan than other outlets. So it's gotten to the point where it's just a giant joke now when they use the breaking news banner. We did the story on the show about how they put breaking news, the Titanic sank 101 years ago today. That would be the exact opposite of breaking news. Breaking news, something happened 100 years ago. So what? That would have been breaking news 100 years ago. But this happens time and time and time again, which is why in U.S. media, you'll often see stories about, like, remember on MSNBC, which is supposed to be the good liberal network, they cut away from a congressperson talking about NSA spying to cover Justin Bieber getting arrested. This is why you'll see a quick reference and a story about foreign policy with a story about Kim Kardashian's ass following it immediately, because the U.S. media is a joke. All they care about is ratings. All they care about is getting advertisers. So by any means necessary to get those things, they're going to try to accomplish it. Now, again, when you compare that with the Canadian media, calm, reserved, relaxed, explaining the situation in a very dry, very factual manner, letting everybody know the situation is developing, we're not going to speculate right now. When the Malaysian plane went missing, Don Lemon speculated that maybe it was a black hole that swallowed it. There simply is no comparison between the U.S. media and the Canadian media. They blow us out of the water. And then also, here's one more thing I want to bring up about this. On Fox News earlier today, wall-to-wall coverage, they had Tucker Carlson come on and all these other people talking about, see, it was Islamic terrorism. This is the problem. I mean, we keep trying to tell people the biggest problem that we're facing is Muslim terrorism. They say it in so many words. Everybody knows that's the underlying assumption and the implication of every point that they make. But here's another reality about U.S. media. If it doesn't fit the already preconceived narrative, they won't cover it. So, how many gun deaths are there in the U.S. every single year? 32,000. The overwhelming majority of those are non-political. The overwhelming majority of those are done by white males, and that includes everything, to be clear. So suicide, homicide, accident, you name it, 32,000. Now, you won't see in the U.S., it's gotten to the point where they just ignore shootings now. Like, unless it's a shooting, it has to happen at some really high-profile place for us to cover it now. It has to happen at a school and kids need to die like Sandy Hook, or it has to be some exorbitant number of people who get shot and killed, or it has to happen to a politician in order for it to get covered. But today, like, there could, be a double homicide in Cleveland right now, and the media won't cover it at all, the national media, because we're so jaded. We're so jaded by gun violence. But if it was anything that ever happened with a Muslim ever, whether or not they did it in the name of their religion and whether or not it was actually terrorism, they'll talk about that nonstop. They'll fearmonger about that nonstop. They'll act like this is the biggest problem we face. And they'll disregard all of the other gun violence, which numerically is much, much, much higher. So objectively, if all they cared about was deaths, hey, what's causing the most number of deaths here? The media would discuss this from the perspective of, well, we need some form of gun reform, whether it be universal background checks, ban on high-capacity magazines, etc., etc. Anything to make us catch up with the rest of the modern world who have way, way less gun deaths than we do. But that's the thing. Again, the U.S. media. Hysteria, sensationalism, fear-mongering, and they'll only cover stories that fit the already preconceived narratives. If it's something else, no matter how many people die, no matter how big of a problem it is, climate change, for example, they're just like, yeah, anyway, that won't get me ratings. Back to Kim Kardashian's ass.